Good morning. What amazing worship this morning, wasn't it? Man. So, who was here last week? Raise your hand if you were here last week. Awesome. Okay, so before we get started, I'm gonna kind of catch people up to what they missed last week. So, just real quick recap of what's going on and where we are. First, did anyone else have a crazy week like I did, or is that just me? Anyone else have a distracted week? I was telling my wife in the prayer when we were praying earlier that it's funny that first thing I preached about last week was focus, right? Focus. And all I did this week was go look all over the place. I was like, I need to stay focused. We talked probably 50 times this week, like, stay focused. Funny, I preached on it, and next thing you know, that next week, it was just, whew, tell you what. It wasn't an easy week, wasn't a fun week. But we made it through, we're here, and God's going to move today. He already is, and He's just going to continue to move. So, last week we talked about, we're in the series we started last week called, What Are You Doing Here? What are you doing here? So last week we focused on the what. So the title is What's Your What? What's your what? So what's your purpose? What's your purpose? My first point was to know your what, you have to have focus. Second point was to know your what, you have to have direction. So know your what. What's your what last week? This week we're focusing on the doing. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Doing, it's an action. Talking about the action, the things that we're doing today. Talking about that. So if you would turn to 1 Kings 19, 8 through 12. Talking about the doing. And the title of my message today is Stop. Stop. Doesn't make sense. Kind of doing and stop are kind of opposites, right? Kind of opposites, but God showed me that sometimes we have to stop doing some things to start doing the right things. Okay? So 1 Kings 19, 8 through 12 says, He got up, ate and drank his fill, and set out. Nourished by that meal, he walked 40 days and nights, all the way to the mountain of God to Horeb. When he got there, he crawled into a cave and went to sleep. Then the word of God came to him. There's our series title. So Elijah, what are you doing here? Elijah says, I've been working my heart out for the God of the angel army, said Elijah. The people of Israel have abandoned your covenant, destroyed the places of worship, and murdered your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me. Then he was told, Go, stand on the mountaintop at attention before God. God will pass by. A hurricane wind ripped through the mountains and shattered the rocks before God, but God wasn't to be found in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, a gentle and quiet whisper. Lord, thank you for today. Lord, thank you for this moment that we are here and we're gathered to be able to worship you. Lord, thank you for bringing us all here today to learn more about you. God, I pray, Lord, as I speak, that only your words come out of my mouth this morning. And Lord, let your Spirit just touch everyone in here in a unique way. Because only you can do that. Lord, thank you for today, and thank you for what you're going to do today. In Jesus' name, amen. So, like I said, emphasis today is the doing. What are you doing here? What are you doing? Doing, it means that it's an activity in which a particular person engages. So it's an action. It's an action. What are you doing? And we find Elijah here in this part as we start the verses today. We find him walking, eating, complaining. He complains a lot. And then for a while he doesn't do anything. For a while he just stands. He just stands. He's just standing there. So when God gave me the title Stop, I was like, what? I was confused too, just like you. I was like, what are you talking about? Stop. But stopping isn't always a bad thing. For me, the first thing I think of when I hear the word stop is growing up and hearing my mom say, Stop it! Stop it with your sisters! Stop hitting them! We have some crazy home videos. I should have, no, I'm glad I didn't. All right. We have some crazy home videos of me, like, I used to watch Power Rangers all the time and used to come up and try and kick them and punch them. And my parents were like, "Stop it! Stop it! You're not allowed to watch Power Rangers anymore." So that's how when I hear stop, it automatically triggers me back when I was a kid. It triggers me when I would get yelled at, and the next thing followed was a ping pong paddle with my butt. It said, "Stop, whack, stop, whack." Happened quite a bit. But so now as an adult, my mom doesn't hit me anymore with a ping pong paddle. She doesn't do that anymore. But I've come to realize the word stop in a new perspective. I've come to realize that I've had to stop some things personally in my own life to grow deeper in my relationship with the Lord. There's some things that I've had to stop to and just take a second and self-reflect on me so I can grow. I've had to learn to stop things myself. So God showed me 3 things today to give to you, and they're all about stopping something so we can experience God in a new way. Are you ready? There's one person. Anyone else ready? All right, here we go. First thing, you need to stop. Stop the blaming. Stop the blaming. Stop pointing the finger. Stop blaming others. Because usually when you start blaming others, it's because something's triggered in you. It's because something hits it right here in you. You might not know what it is. You might not be able to explain it, but it's something in you. There's something in you that you need to look in the mirror at first. It's before we point the finger, we need to look in the mirror. We need to look at ourselves. Because usually when we if I'm in a bad mood, the first thing I do is blame it on my kids. First thing I do is blame it on my wife. Sorry. First thing I do is blame it on somebody else. I try to find the reason that I'm in a bad mood. What if it's just me? What if it's my fault? What if it's something I did? What if it's something I'm dealing with? But first thing I do, my first reaction is blame it and point it to somebody else. Point it to somebody else. And that's something in me. I know that. But we still do it. Everyone messes up, right? Everyone blames someone else for something. It's funny that first thing we find Elijah doing here is he's telling God what's going on, like God doesn't know. He starts explaining to God that, listen, God, all your people of Israel are going crazy. They've lost their minds, and now they're trying to kill me. I'm the last one left, so please hook a brother up and send me something to help me out. I'm the last one left. And see, he was putting the blame on Israel for where he was. He was putting the blame, he was saying, God, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Look at what he said. Look what she said. Look at what they're doing. And then he's like, God, it's not my fault I'm here. It's not my fault. He's telling God, he's like, it's their fault. They're the ones killing everybody, destroying the places of worship. It's their fault. So many times I think we try and blame others for what we're doing. For what we're doing, we point the fingers to others if we're not doing something right. Like, oh, I'm only here because he said this. I only did that because she said this to him. I'm only here because, I'm only doing this because they made me. They made me do it. We don't take enough time to just take that moment and look in the mirror before we point to others. Sometimes we just need that moment of self-reflection to say, okay, what's really going on here? What's really going on? And the next thing you see is when God responds to Elijah, it's funny because he doesn't really say anything. He doesn't really try and comfort him or correct him. He tells him something to do. He tells him one thing. He tells him something to do. He says, go stand on the mountaintop. Go stand. He doesn't try and comfort him. He tells him something to do. Gives him an action to take. Gives him an action. And at that point, God knew. He already knew what he wanted to do with Elijah. He knew what was coming down the road. God knew that he needed Elijah to take that step, to do that. His next step of doing was to go stand on the mountain. Elijah didn't understand. But little did he know, God was about to take him to the next level. Little did he know. What brings me to my second point. I'm sorry if this hurts you a little bit or offends you, but my second point is sometimes we need to stop and shut up. Stop and shut up. Sorry if it hurt you, but listen, I'm just telling you what God told me to tell you. So stop and shut up. Sometimes I think we're so busy talking to God and just throwing this list of demands at him, like, can you do this, can you do this, can you do this, that God's trying to talk and we don't hear him. Sometimes we need to stop and shut up. And I'm not saying stop praying. Please don't say, I've never said don't stop praying. Okay, I'm looking at the camera. Don't stop praying. I've never said stop praying. So keep praying, but sometimes we need to give God that space, just that room. So if we don't ever stop talking, like if I'm talking to Jeff and he's talking to me, and we're talking back and forth, and all of a sudden I can't get a word in because he keeps talking, which doesn't happen that often. And so we're talking. I will never be able to. He'll never hear what I say if he doesn't stop talking. It happens this way all the time, let alone this way. So if we don't ever stop talking to somebody else, how are we ever going to get heard? So sometimes we just need to give God space. Sometimes it just, like if I was talking quietly in a whisper during worship, you wouldn't be able to hear me. You wouldn't be able to hear what I was saying. And I love that God chose to speak to Elijah in a whisper. Because two things have to happen for the whisper. Okay, for you to hear the whisper, first of all, it has to be quiet. It has to be quiet. So all the things, all the mess, all the distractions everything that's going on around you have to be quieted down. Have to be quieted down so you can hear the whisper. You're not going to hear me say anything during worship if I'm talking like this. It doesn't matter. I watched a YouTube clip last night of a game they played on The Tonight Show. It was funny. I was scrolling through YouTube and this came up. I was like, it was called the Whisper Game. I'm like, oh, I got to check that out. So I clicked on it, and this lady they pulled someone out of the audience, they put headphones on, and they played music really loud. And the other person had to read a card, and they had to try and understand what they're saying by reading their lips. So it's funny, they went back and forth a couple times. You know, they were like, what? What? And of course, the person with headphones is yelling, like they can't hear anything. So, but when it's so loud around you, you can't hear what the other person was talking. The other person was saying it loud, but they couldn't hear them. They couldn't hear what they were saying because of all the noise that was going on. The second thing that needs to happen for a whisper is you got to be close. You got to be close. See, Elijah, I don't think he would have heard the whisper if he wasn't already close to God. If I'm whispering, you can't hear me out in the hallway. But if I'm right on you, you can hear me whispering. You can't hear the whisper from far away. The whisper is like, it's the most important part of this whole story to me, and I love this part of the story just because of the whisper. Because there's so much that goes into just the whisper. The whisper. Sometimes we're so distracted by everything around us and all the wind and the fire and the earthquakes that are going on that you can't hear the whisper. What if you need to stop today and just listen to the whisper? Listen to the whisper. Can you hear it? Sometimes it's the hardest thing to do, is listen to the whisper. You got to get close, and you got to block out all the other noise that's going on around you so you can hear the whisper. See, God could have very easily spoke through the wind. He could have very easily spoke through the fire, spoke through the earthquake, but he chose to use a whisper. a quiet voice. I think he did that for a couple reasons, and one is to see if Elijah would wait through all the other stuff. If it was me, I wouldn't. I'd be up on the mountain and the wind started, I'd be like, God, can you pick somewhere else, please? This is kind of crazy up here. I would have left after the wind, let alone stay for the fire and the earthquake. I think it shows just how desperate Elijah was in that moment. That he stayed through all the craziness that's going on around him. He stayed put on the mountaintop. He didn't move. He was doing what God told him to do by standing on the mountaintop. And then after all the craziness, after all the madness going on around him, it wasn't until he got through all that and he stayed and he waited on God, that the whisper came. Are you desperate enough today to push through all that junk to hear the whisper? Are you desperate enough today to stay put, doing what God told you to be doing? Block out all the distractions, all the noise, to hear the whisper. The whisper. So sometimes you just need to stop and shut up. Sometimes you need to stop and shut up. Not very nice, but sometimes you need to do it. Number 3. Sometimes you need to stop and just obey. Stop and just obey. Here's the thing, when you're obeying, a lot of times it's not noticeable to others. It's not noticeable that Elijah was obeying God. If you walked by and saw him on a mountain, like today, I'd be like, hold on. Look at this guy. Look at this guy, standing on a mountain. Look at the wind. What is he, crazy? Man. Oh, whoa, hold on, earthquake. Oh, what the? He's still up there. He's on a mountain. You guys see he's on a mountaintop in an earthquake. Whoa, fire. Oh, God, oh, yeesh. I want to know how the fire happened. Was it just raining fire? Was something catch on fire around him? What happened, I want to see that movie when I get to heaven. And so you're standing there, and you're just like, wow, what is he doing? What is he doing? You're recording it, and you get all these posts on Facebook, and then what they didn't know, what they didn't get to see, what they didn't get to hear, was the whisper. They couldn't see all that. They didn't know God. He was obeying God by going and standing on the mountaintop. He probably just looked like a madman up there. He probably looked like a crazy old guy standing on top of a mountain during a hurricane. Come on, what? But he was obeying God. And they will never understand that. Some people won't understand why you're doing what you're doing, and that's okay. Sometimes people will go, what are you doing? And they don't get it. And that's okay. You don't need to impress people to do what God tells you to do. If God tells you to do something, He tells you to go stand on the mountain during a hurricane, are you going to do it? Oh, it's easy to say yes now, right? It's easy to say yes until you're the one on the mountain during the hurricane. Obeying is almost like a sexy term in Christianity. It's almost like, oh yeah, I obeyed. Yep, I did what God told me to do. Yep, I'm obeying. But it's not always fun. Obeying isn't always easy. Obeying isn't always just, oh yay, look, I got $1 million check in the mail. Obeying is not always easy. And it's not always fun. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is obey what's God telling you to do. Sometimes that's the hardest thing that you'll ever do is listen to God and do it. Actually do it. That's the difference, is when you hear it, do you actually take that step and stand on the mountaintop and then stay through the wind, stay through the fire, stay through the earthquake, or do you bail before God gets you to where He wants you to be? See, if Elijah wasn't doing what God told him to do, which was stand there, if Elijah wasn't even in that place to begin with and doing what God told him to do, he would have never gone to the next level of God. This was Elijah's moment to take a step further in his relationship with the Lord. If he wasn't doing and if he wasn't obeying what God told him to do, and he wasn't where he needed him to be, he might have missed it. He might have missed the moment that God wanted to teach him about the whisper if he didn't obey. You know, you never know when God could use the earthquake and the wind and the fire. You don't know when he's going to use that. He could right now. He could just sweep through here, blow a wind right through here, and use that and speak, and we'll know. You'll know if it's God. Elijah knew it wasn't God when he heard it, when he felt the wind. Elijah knew it wasn't God when he felt the earthquake. He knew it wasn't God when the fire came. But all of a sudden, after all that, he never heard it, experienced it like this before. Never even knew it was possible, but he heard God whisper. He heard the whisper. The small, quiet voice. He heard God speak quietly for the first time. It wasn't in the dramatic. It wasn't in the loud. God can speak however he wants to speak. But you have to be willing to hear it. You have to wait in that place long enough doing what God told you to do. You have to obey long enough and keep doing what God tells you to do so you can hear it. What if your next step of obedience is what God needs to do to bring you to the next level? What if God's waiting for you to take that next step to obey, to do what he's told you to do, to get you ready to hear the whisper? What if everything around you in your life right now is just noise? It's just the wind and the fire and the earthquake going around you. And God wants to bring you to a place where you can hear the whisper. But to do that, you need to stop blaming. Stop blaming others and look at yourself for a moment. Stop blaming others for the things that are going on around you. I think even as Christians, sometimes we give the devil too much credit for what is going on around us. Sometimes it's our own bad decision. We just need to suck it up and realize it. I did that. The devil didn't do that. That was my choice. I'm the one that did it. Stop blaming others. That includes the devil. You need to stop and just shut up. Shut up so God can speak. Shut up. Stop laying your request after request after request after request after request, and just listen for a moment. That's unheard of in today's society. To just stop and listen? What? Listen to what you're saying, huh? What? I don't do that. We don't do that. We just keep going, keep talking, keep moving. And then you just stop and just obey. Sometimes you already know what God's told you to do. Sometimes it's already there. God already told you, and you know it. You just need to do it. Go stand on the mountain. Sometimes you just need to do it. Obey. Go start that business. Sometimes you need to do it. Take that step. Just reach in and dive deeper with Him. Sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's not extravagant and not going on a crusade and not going on a mission trip. Sometimes it's just being at home with your kids. Maybe that's what He's calling you to do. Maybe He's calling you to be a better dad or a better mom. It starts that simple. We overcomplicate so many things when sometimes we just need to stop and obey. Stop what you're doing and start doing what God's told you to do. It's often the hardest thing. I love this part of the story because God showed up and spoke to Elijah in such a new way. A way that he had never experienced before. A way that he had never even fathomed could happen, because he'd only known God in the loud and the craziness. I think there's some people in here today that God wants you to experience Him in a new way. I think there's some people in here today that when you ask yourself, what am I doing here? Are you going to get some stops that you got to stop? I think you're going to get some stops. I got a bunch of stops this week. I got a whole bunch of stop signs hit me right in the head as I'm preparing this. I need to stop and shut up. Which category do you fall in this week? Which one today do you need to do? Which thing do you need to stop? Which thing do you need to stop doing to get to where God needs you to be? Which step, which point do you need? Stop blaming. Stop and shut up. Or stop and just obey. Or maybe it's all three. I think I've experienced all three in 1 week. Or today. I'm not quite sure yet. Day is not over. Day is young. So if you would stand with me this morning. Where do you find yourself today? Which category, which point is for you? They're all hard. None of them are easy. I get that. None of them are easy. Nothing about these are easy. But it comes down to, if you want to go and experience God in a new way, if you want to go to the next level with God, you have to be ready to hear the whisper. Can you hear the whisper today? Are you ready to hear the whisper? Some of us aren't ready. God knows that. Are you ready to hear the whisper? Is God trying to speak to you today, and you can't even hear it? What if God was speaking the whole time to Elijah during the wind and the fire and the earthquake, but he couldn't hear it because of everything else? He couldn't hear it. What if he was speaking the whole time? What do you need to stop today? Leadership team, if you would come up, get ready to pray. What do you need to stop today? Maybe you don't have a relationship with the Lord today, and you're looking at me like I'm crazy. It's okay, I am crazy. I know it. Maybe you need to get a relationship with the Lord so you can know. So you can experience what I'm talking about. So you can experience what Elijah experienced. So you can go to that next level. Which category do you fall into today? What do you need to stop so God can start? What do you need to stop? Is there something you need to stop so God can start something new? And are you ready to hear the whisper? Are you in a place to hear the whisper? Are you ready to hear what He has to say? Are you ready to obey? Are you ready to shut up? Listen for the whisper. Listen for it. If you need prayer, please come up. Our leadership team is up here ready to pray for you. Listen for the whisper. Just listen. What is He trying to do in you today? Maybe you need to obey and take that step to come up front to get prayer. Listen for the whisper. He's speaking.
When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Yes, you did. You have been so, so kind to me. Hold me over.
Don't miss your moment this morning. Don't miss your moment. God's moving through here in a new way. He wants you to experience Him in a new way this morning. Don't miss your moment to hear the whisper this morning. Lord, we thank you for what you've done today. Lord, help us to learn what we need to stop. Lord, reveal in us. Help us take a moment to self-reflect and look in the mirror today to see what you want us to stop, so we can experience you in a new way. Help us to never stop striving to seek after you and go deeper in you. Lord, thank you for what you've done today. Lord, help us to learn to hear the whisper. Help us to learn it when you're ready to speak it. Help us to be ready to hear it. Touch each and every one here as they go home and go throughout their week. Be with them, Lord, and show them what they need to stop so you can start doing something, God. Or do what you do as only you can. In Jesus' name, amen. If you need to leave, you can. If you want to stay up and if you lost your keys this weekend at some point, you go see Sister Reagan.